Yeah, I actually saw this piece of shit right here, so I made it through. Now it's time to tell you guys about it. The Hurricane Heist is the latest movie from Rob Cohen, whose career has really been on a downward streak, and stars Maggie Grace and Toby Kebbell, and you could pretty much guess the plot of the movie based on the title alone. A group of criminals attempt to steal $600 million from a US Treasury, and they decide to try to do it during a Category 5 storm. That's literally all you need to know in terms of a plot, but I bet you're wondering, is this movie worth seeing just based on how absurd the title is? Well, let me tell you something. Every once in a while you get a movie like Hurricane Heist, or with last year, Geostorm, where it looks so goddamn absurd, so stupid. I mean, to quote Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, you never go full retard. And the way I first heard about this movie was actually on my way home from work one day. I was driving down the street and I saw billboards for the Hurricane Heist. I'm like, what the hell is this? It's coming out in a few weeks? So I looked at the trailer. It was super absurd. So I figured, okay, I actually gotta see this for myself. But then I thought back to Geostorm. I had the exact same feelings when I first heard about Geostorms, like, this is so absurd, I have to see it. But unfortunately with Geostorm, it just ended up being plain bad, and not in a so bad it's good fashion. And the same thing can be applied for Hurricane Heist. In fact, this movie actually makes me admire Geostorm in a way, because Geostorm, at the very least, when it had its absurd moments, it was inventive. It was goddamn stupid, but at least it was inventive, like a plane just falling out of the sky after being frozen. It just got so nuts. And this movie, it's just a hurricane. There's not much about it, but there's only about maybe 10 or 20 minutes out of an hour and a half movie of an actual hurricane heist or just absurd moments with a hurricane. And it's clear that this movie didn't really have that much of a budget, because a lot of the movie feels like a generic heist movie, and the hurricane just happens to be in the background. And they try to do some really dramatic things here with the characters. You don't give a shit about any of them. And the acting is a mess. Some actors are just bored out of their mind. Like Maggie Grace just doesn't want to be here, although I don't think her career is really that strong. And Toby Kebbell looks high throughout this whole movie. It just looks like he smoked a lot of weed before coming in, because he has this look of, God damn it, this movie's gonna ruin my career. I'm just gonna stick it through. I survived Fantastic Four, but I'm afraid this is gonna be the one. So you have that, and then you have people that are just so over the top in terms of their performances. There's one guy that plays the sheriff, and a lot of the times he has this horrible southern accent. Well, Toby Kebbell has a horrible southern accent as well. But the sheriff and the main villain of the movie, they speak through their teeth a lot of the time. Like, they're so intense the whole time, and they're really speaking through their teeth. You can't understand a fucking word they're saying, and I'm so pissed off right now. It's those moments where you're at least entertained, because, okay, at least they're chewing up the scenery, rather than the people that are just so mellow and out of it and don't really care to be here. So at the points where you actually do get scenes involving the hurricane, it's terrible CGI. Like I mentioned, this movie didn't really have that much of a budget, and this is not being released by a big major studio like Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Fox. So it's clear that there was not a lot of money put into this. But during those sequences, there are just a handful of snippets where it becomes the so bad it's good movie you're hoping for this to be. For example, there's a scene where Maggie Grace and Toby Kebbell are tied to these harnesses, and they're being sucked up into the hurricane, but they're hanging on through the harnesses. So they go flying in the air, and the camera is on them, or at least their CGI doubles, for about 3 to 5 seconds as they're flailing around through the air while the hurricane's blowing them around, while they're hanging onto their harnesses, and they look like rag dolls, or they look like those inflatable tube men you see outside of car dealerships. It just made me laugh so hard. And the fact that they managed to get back inside with just a scratch on the head, and that's it, and maybe a bloody lip. So that's more like the stuff you want to see, where people are getting flung around the hurricane. But sometimes during this hurricane, you see people having car chases in it without the cars being flown off in the distance. You see people just walking around like it's just a heavy rain and a light wind. And you see people shooting each other out there in the streets during this hurricane. The wind's not changed at all, and they're not being flown away. So there's a lot of stupid inconsistencies with this. And I doubt there's much else to say without flat out spoiling it. You know what? For this week's Stardust review, I'm going to include Hurricane Heist and A Wrinkle in Time. We'll do a double feature for this week's Stardust video. So I'm just going to wrap things up right here. The best way I could describe Hurricane Heist is, imagine if the Asylum actually got enough money and got enough power to release a movie in the theaters, because watching this movie, it looked like an Asylum production where they really try at points to make this movie so bad it's good, when that stuff happens on accident. You do not go in there and make a movie with the mindset of it's going to be so bad it's good. You have to do that by accident. You have to be super passionate about it, yet you have no idea what you're doing. So I feel stupid by saying it's a disappointment, because I didn't expect this to be good at all, but if it is disappointing, it's that, like Geostorm, it's not that so bad it's good movie you want it to be. So don't waste your money. And like I said before, this movie makes me appreciate Geostorm a lot more just for its absurd moments that are actually kind of creative in terms of just creating the scenarios. But this movie is just plain bad. If you feel like you want to see it, wait till it comes out on digital, rent it, grab a few drinks, grab your friends, and you might enjoy bits and pieces of it. But this movie is just not worth seeing in the theater. And that's my review for the Hurricane Heist. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.